The Blue Umbrella by Ruskin Bond. Chapter 1. Neelu, Neelu, cried Binya. She scrambled barefoot over the rocks, ran over the short summer grass, up and over the brow of the hill, all the time calling, Neelu, Neelu. Neelu, Blue, was the name of the blue-grey cow. The other cow, which was white, was called Gori, meaning fair one. They were fond of wandering off on their own, down to the stream or into the pine forest, and sometimes they came back by themselves, and sometimes they stayed away, almost deliberately, it seemed to Binya. If the cows didn't come home at the right time, Binya would be sent to fetch them. Sometimes her brother Biju went with her, but these days he was busy preparing for his exams and didn't have time to help with the cows. Binya liked being on her own, and sometimes she allowed the cows to lead her into some distant valley, and then they would all be late coming home. The cows preferred having Binya with them because she let them wander. Biju pulled them by their tails if they went too far. Binya belonged to the mountains, to this part of the Himalayas known as Garhwal. Dark forests and lonely hilltops held no terrors for her. It was only when she was in the market town, jostled by the crowds in the bazaar, that she felt rather nervous and lost. The town, 5 miles from the village, was also a pleasure resort for tourists from all over India. Binya was probably 10. She may have been 9 or even 11, she couldn't be sure because no one in the village kept birthdays. But her mother told her she had been born during a winter when the snow had come up to the windows, and that was just over 10 years ago, wasn't it? 2 years later her father had died, but his passing had made no difference to their way of life. They had 3 tiny terraced fields on the side of the mountain, and they grew potatoes, onions, ginger, beans, mustard, and maize. Not enough to sell in the town, but enough to live on. Like most mountain girls, Binya was quite sturdy, fair of skin, with pink cheeks and dark eyes, and her black hair tied in a pigtail. She wore pretty glass bangles on her wrists and a necklace of glass beads. From the necklace hung a leopard's claw. It was a lucky charm, and Binya always wore it. Biju had one too, only his was attached to a string. Binya's full name was Binya Devi, and Biju's real name was Vijay, but everyone called them Binya and Biju. Binya was 2 years younger than her brother. She had stopped calling for Neelu. She had heard the cowbells tinkling and knew the cows hadn't gone far. Singing to herself, she walked over fallen pine needles into the forest glade on the spar of the hill. She heard voices, laughter, the clatter of plates and cups, and stepping through the trees, she came upon a party of picnickers. They were holidaymakers from the plains. The women were dressed in bright saris, the men wore light summer shirts, and the children had pretty new clothes. Binya, standing in the shadows between the trees, went unnoticed, and for some time she watched the picnickers, admiring their clothes, listening to their unfamiliar accents, and gazing rather hungrily at the sight of all their food. And then her gaze came to rest on a bright blue umbrella, a frilly thing for women, which lay open on the grass beside its owner. Now Binya had seen umbrellas before, and her mother had a big black umbrella which nobody used anymore because the field rats had eaten holes in it. But this was the first time Binya had seen such a small, dainty, colorful umbrella, and she fell in love with it. The umbrella was like a flower, a great blue flower that had sprung up on the dry brown hillside. She moved forward a few paces so that she could see the umbrella better. As she came out of the shadows into the sunlight, the picnickers saw her. "Hello! Look who's here!" exclaimed the older of the 2 women, "a little village girl." "Isn't she pretty?" remarked the other. "But how torn and dirty her clothes are!" It did not seem to bother them that Binya could hear and understand everything they said about her. "They are very poor in the hills," said one of the men. "Then let's give her something to eat." And the older woman beckoned to Binya to come closer. Hesitantly, nervously, Binya approached the group. Normally she would have turned and fled, but the attraction was the pretty blue umbrella. It had cast a spell over her, drawing her forward almost against her will. "What's that on her neck?" asked the younger woman. "A necklace of sorts. It's a pendant. See, there's a claw hanging from it." "It's a tiger's claw," said the man beside her. He had never seen a tiger's claw. "A lucky charm. These people wear them to keep away evil spirits." He looked to Binya for confirmation, but Binya said nothing. "Oh, I want one too," said the woman who was obviously his wife. "You can't get them in shops." "Buy hers then. Give her 2 or 3 rupees. She's sure to need the money." The man, looking slightly embarrassed but anxious to please his young wife, produced a 2-rupee note and offered it to Binya, indicating that he wanted the pendant in exchange. Binya put her hand to the necklace, half afraid that the excited woman would snatch it away from her. Solemnly she shook her head. The man then showed her a 5-rupee note, but again Binya shook her head. "How silly she is!" exclaimed the young woman. "It may not be hers to sell," said the man, "but I'll try again. How much do you want? What can we give you?" And he waved his hand towards the picnic things scattered about on the grass. Without any hesitation, Binya pointed to the umbrella. "My umbrella!" exclaimed the young woman. "She wants my umbrella! What cheek!" "Well, you want her pendant, don't you?" "That's different." "Is it?" The man and his wife were beginning to quarrel with each other. "I'll ask her to go away," said the older woman. "We are making such fools of ourselves." "But I want the pendant," cried the other petulantly, and then, on an impulse, she picked up the umbrella and held it out to Binya. "Here, take the umbrella." Binya removed her necklace and held it out to the young woman, who immediately placed it round her own neck. Then Binya took the umbrella and held it up. It did not look so small in her hands. In fact, it was just the right size. She had forgotten about the picnickers who were busy examining the pendant. She turned the blue umbrella this way and that, looked through the bright blue silk at the pulsating sun, and then, still keeping it open, turned and disappeared into the forest glade.